All right. Should be recording. And can you all see this screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, not the presentation, right?
How to ace an interview?
Yes, awesome.
Hmm.
Thank you. All right. Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I should say. My name is Elijah Harrison. I'm an opportunity at navigator with UVA's Pipelines and Pathways. And in preparation for our community and career fair on October 7th at the Hillsdale Conference Center from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., we have a workshop series to help prep people for the uh, job fair. So in today's workshop, we'll be talking about acing an interview and on top of that, at our community and career fair, we will be having a speed interviewing sessions that are specific to industries. So more information on that in some of the description details. So if you all are interested, but without further ado, let's talk about what skills we can work on to help us prepare for interviewing. Because I know interviewing, a lot of it is mental and it takes um, mental preparation in order to get that confidence that you might need. Right, so let's go over the agenda real quickly. So we're gonna look at some of the workshop objectives. We're gonna understand how to use the STAR method. So situation, task, action, results. We'll go into more details on that here in a few. Generating tailored interview questions based on the job description of the job that you're interviewing for, while utilizing your own resume to craft up some potential questions and answers, and then some interview presentation and behavioral tips for both in-person and virtual interviews. And then, of course, you got to write that thank you email after the interview, at least within the, 48 hours since your interview. And then we'll open up the room for any final questions, answers, some tips that you all may have. So why should we prepare for interviews in the first place, right? Can't we just walk into an interview and answer questions and call it, a day? Well, not really. I think that we tend to think that interviewing is just something that we do, but really it does take preparation. A lot of times, we don't realize that some of the skills that we possess are transferable into other roles because it may seem uh, ambiguous at times whether or not these skills are transferable, but a lot of times they are. So that's why you want to prepare so you can be able to articulate why you are a good fit for that role, but also you want to stand out from competition. And that will also build confidence through the preparation. You're ready to answer questions. You're mentally aware of the things you've done. You've kind of refreshed your mind and reminded yourself of the roles you've had and the different tasks you took on that are related to the job that you are interviewing for. So that's going to give you that confidence to answer those questions when they come. And then, of course, anticipating and acing out challenging questions. So if you are given a challenging question, at least you prepped for that, and at least you can anticipate that. It may not be the exact question that they're asking, but it'll allow you to practice to think outside of the box when answering questions. And then you will be able to show your enthusiasm and fit for the role because you're not busy trying to think of some answers. So you're spending less energy trying to answer or think of an answer so you have time to really show your enthusiasm and your confidence for the role. So that is why you should prepare for interviews. Does anyone else have anything else to add? I mean, it's kind of straightforward. You want to prepare for every interview. So what you'll learn, well, like I said earlier, we're going to master the STAR method. So that will help the interviewers follow a visual map of what it is you did and how that action resulted. Using AI to generate tailored interview questions, leveraging AI to create answers based on your resume that fit that STAR method, and then behavioral and presentation tips for virtual and in-person interviews. We've already talked about that. So understanding the STAR method, well, first of all, the S stands for situation. What was the context or background? T equals task. What needed to be done? A equals action. What actions did you take? And then R is result. What was the outcome? So the goal of answering not every interview questions, but only ones that require this, and we'll talk a little bit more how you can decipher that here in a bit. But what the STAR method allows for the interviewer to do is to visualize you as an interviewee, what it is you did and at your previous job, or what the situation was, what you did, what actions you took, and what results transpired from those actions. So they can visually see you doing that. So here is the STAR method in action. So here's a question example. So tell me about a time when you solved a challenging problem. Very common question we get. And an answer could be something like, well, at my previous job, we faced a tight project deadline. So that's the situation. I needed to coordinate tasks to ensure timely delivery. That's the task. So what did I do? Well, I created a timeline, delegated tasks, and held daily check-ins. So that was the action I took. And the results, well, it delivered the project 2 days early, exceeding client expectations. Now, I know this example here is very general, but really it talks to the STAR method where you're talking about a situation at your previous job, what tasks you needed to do, what actions you took to fulfill those tasks, and what was the outcome. And notice how at the results, deliver the project 2 days early. A lot of times with that result, if it's feasible to add in a number to do so. So for example, maybe you helped deliver the project with 70% accuracy, or you know, maybe you helped client outreach increase by 80%. Whatever the case is, if there is a number that you can add to the results portion of your answer, I would do so. Statistics a lot of times also helps the interviewers to see, okay, well, this individual brought this to the table. So, you know, there's some data here that we can look at and know, hey, this individual is capable of doing that. Um, all right, so are there any questions about the STAR method? It's pretty straightforward. I think the hardest thing is actually utilizing the STAR method in the middle of an interview, but that's why we're here, just to get the tools we need to practice. But any questions from anybody? All seven of you all? No questions. All right. Well, if any questions do arise, please do not hesitate to blurt out. I'm here to teach you all. So let's, AI is a big thing these days, and we're going to utilize it here. So we're going to generate some tailored interview questions using AI. So let me get out of here briefly. Okay, can you all see these dual screens? It's got the Microsoft Word and job.
Yes.
All right, great. So, um, we are going to create, I would say, 10 tailored interview questions for this Access Associate Ambulatory Access Operations position at the University of Virginia. So, um, I am going to go to chatgpt.com. It's free to use. And I'm going to say, please generate, we'll say 10 to start, and you can keep going and going and going as long and as many as you like. Please generate 10 interview questions, including a tell me about yourself for this job. Now, the reason why I including a tell me about yourself question, because this is typically the first question that is asked in every interview. The reason why I do that in ChatGPT is because it does not always output a tell me about yourself question. And it's good to get that one out of the way. It's the most important question I think there is to answer. It sets the tone for the interview, and it's essentially where you give your elevator pitch. Who are you? What do you know? Why do we want to hire you? So please generate 10 interview questions, including a tell me about yourself for this job, and I'll put a colon. And what I'll do is I'll go back to the job that I'm interested in interviewing for or that I have an interview for. And I'm going to copy and paste all of the job description, most of it, I guess, only the relevant information, back into ChatGPT. Just Control C, Control V, or you can right click and paste. And I'll just click enter. And then boom, here are 10 interview questions tailored to the position at UVA Health for a access team member. So here are 10 questions. Tell me about yourself. This is often the first question. Yes. What interests you about working in a patient-facing role and specifically with UVA Health? This role requires both in-person and phone interactions with parents. Can you describe your experience with customer service and how you've managed customer interactions in both settings? See, right off the bat, we've got questions that are tailored specifically to the Access Associate role. Now, these questions are not going to be asked. We don't know that. But at this allows for you to get the gears turning and how to answer some of the questions that you would anticipate in an interview for a position like this one. So we've got our questions. We've got 10 questions. Great. Now we need to answer them. And there's a little shortcut that I like to use to answer the questions. So it's simply, I'll go back into the ChatGPT chat box down here and I will say, answer these questions based on this resume, colon, and I'm going to go to John Doe's resume here and I'm going to copy and paste every piece of content in it and back into ChatGPT and click enter. And so what ChatGPT is going to do is it's going to utilize all of the information from my resume to answer the 10 questions that are related to the Access Associate role um, and answer them. So let's see what we've got for the output. So back to the tell me about yourself. Now, we didn't go over what the resume of John Doe entails, but looking at the answer, we can see that I'm a business professional with over 5 years of experience in marketing and project management. I've led digital campaigns, managed cross-functional teams, and developed customer-focused programs that improved retention and engagement. While my background is in marketing, the common thread throughout my career has been delivering excellent service and building strong relationships, skills I believe are directly transferable to a patient-facing role like this. I'm looking to bring my communication skills, attention to detail, and customer first mindset into a role where I can make a meaningful difference, like at UVA Health. Now, this is a very, very wordy answer. I personally don't Like it. I like the beginning where it talks about what you're a business professional. You have over 5 years of experience in blah, blah, blah. I like this part. But with the AI answers, a lot of them come out very wordy. They come out very AI-like. And the goal for these answers is not for you to copy them verbatim. More so, the goal is for you to get the gears turning, for you to think about what experience do I have? How does it relate to this role I'm interviewing for? And that's what this does right here, is it takes your experience from your resume and it crafts it into answers that can be answered that are related to the job that you're interviewing for. So if I were you, I would do this, 3 different times with 3 different versions of answers. It's merely just not to memorize these answers, but to get the gears turning. Remember the experience you've had. Remember how you can link that experience to this role. Um, so just keep that in mind. You're not going to see this question that says, describe a time when you handled a difficult upset customer patient. You might, but that's not guaranteed. Now that does seem like a more common question you would get. But the point is that these AI generated answers and questions are not guaranteed on the interview. They're not something that you should memorize. They're more something as a tool to get the gears turning and to build that confidence. Are there any questions about this? And did anyone know that you can use this with AI?
Yeah, it looks very useful. Because I haven't been in interviews for sort of decades now. I only recently sort of lost my job, so things like Chat GPT and stuff were not around the last time I did interviews. So yeah, this is very good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Yeah, and that's, the goal of this is to shine light on some of the tools that are out there that we do know exist, but how do you use it? Like even using ChatGPT can be kind of wonky sometimes. Um, so that's, the goal here isn't to, sway everyone to get on the AI bandwagon, but more so to see and realize what tools you have out there, and how you can utilize them.
Just a quick
Okay.
question, Elijah. So, for individuals that are using a free account, so this is totally free and everyone can have access to it, correct?
Correct.
So, if you're using a free account, do you know what the limitations are in terms of like number of, generations and that sort of
Yes.
thing? Just so people are aware. I
No.
think it resets every day, but just to
Yep.
give people a heads up on that.
No, that's a great point, Holly. So yes, ChatGPT is free for everyone to use, but there is a limited number of entries you can input every day. Um, I haven't maxed on this one because I just opened it. Um, but there should be more than enough for this specific use. If you were planning on using AI for other things, then I would think twice about how many entries you do for each whatever other things you're doing. But it is also you can sign up for free. There's a paid version as well. Um, but yes, there is a capacity limit to how many entries you can have if you're not paying or if you're not signed up. Thank you for pointing that out, Holly. But yeah, are there any other questions before we move forward?
And then other options for AI. So ChatGPT obviously is one of the most popular. I see someone in our chat mentioned another option. I know Copilot also has an AI. Any
Oh,
other
wow.
any other things that you can use?
I see a Claude AI has a free version.
Um, Sorry. Something that I use that helps as well. Yes to ChatGPT, and also Grow with Google really, really helps as well. So
Hmm.
you just Google, go to Grow with Google, and it's interview warm up. So they use AI, and essentially, you will. it'll come up with questions for you, like 5 or so questions, and then you respond to the question. So you have to make sure you have your microphone on and everything, but you respond to it, and then it'll also give you insights. And that's what I really like about it. So I'll answer the 5 questions. At the end of it, it'll have a transcript of my answers, and then it'll tell you stuff like repeated words that you use. It'll give you
Mm,
insights on your responses as well, and it'll also highlight vocabulary that you use that's related to the industry that you're interviewing for. So to make sure your answers are like relevant, I guess. So I like to use that as well.
wow. And Elle, what was that again?
It's called Grow with Google. Let me see if I can
Well,
put it
with
in the chat
Google.
right here.
Wow, that sounds awesome. That sounds like, hmm,
It sounds
sounds
like a
good.
mock interview.
I was gonna say, he sounds like a
It
mock
essentially
interview.
it essentially is, but you get to kind of go at your own pace. So when I first started on it, I would kind of think about my answers, and then I would, hit answer the question and go
Mm,
from there. But it helped me build up a lot of confidence. So I get to
mm,
the point now where when I schedule my interviews, I make sure that I'm hitting the industry that I want. And then
mhm,
it'll generate a bunch of different questions for me. And then it cycles you through 5, but then you can regenerate 5 more. And
mhm,
it's free. I haven't had any issues with it as far as limitations or anything goes.
mm.
And with ChatGPT, doing both of them has been really helpful because I can practice a bunch of different questions ahead of time and then go into
Yeah.
Google, Grow with Google. And the mock interview style, both of those together, hand in hand, has showed me a lot of success with interviewing thus far.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other tips, tricks, or other resources that you all are aware of that you would like to share with the greater group? All right. Well, let's continue on with workshop then. So, whoops, did not mean to go there. All right, so we've got our interview questions, we've got our interview answers. We have been practicing them nonstop for hours at a day. Now we are getting ready to prepare for the interview itself. Beyond answering questions are other things that we must prepare for. Um, so for virtual interviews, some tips include, of course, to dress professionally. I myself am wearing a tie with a dress shirt and a blazer specifically for this workshop. This is elevated dressing. I'm dressing for success. You always want to overdress for an interview. I know there are industry specific, um, you know, I guess what you would say the norm for wear, but obviously each industry has their own specific expectations for what you should wear in an interview. So make sure you're doing that research. At any rate, the point is to always dress elevated so you stand out from others. And here's a big one that I see a lot of people make the mistake on is looking into the camera when you are speaking. So if you're looking into the camera, the other people on the other side will feel as though they're making eye contact with you when you are communicating. Now, this makes a difference. It really does. If you notice other people when they're communicating and they look into the camera, does it not make you feel like they're looking at you in the eyes? So when you're in an interview and you want to create that connection that would otherwise be difficult to create since it's virtual, looking into the camera lens can spark something there. And if you have difficulty remembering to look into the lens of your camera, you can always cut out an eyeball and paste it behind your camera or something, a sticky note, whatever the case is, to remind yourself, hey, when I'm talking, I need to be looking at the camera. Definitely want to choose a quiet, well-lit space with a neutral background. I have this background that comes, so it's, it blocks out everything behind me. You don't want any distractions. Um, so that's for virtual, but I know there's a lot more out there. So I'm going to ask you all what other tips you might have for virtual interviews that come to mind, whether it was through your own past experience and maybe a mistake you made, because we all make mistakes, but we learn from them. Are there any other tips for virtual interviews?
Yeah, I would say that if you are doing a virtual interview from your car, to be mindful that you are in an interview. So if you happen to see someone walking by, you don't stop and go, "Hey, how you doing?" Because I mean, you are in an interview. Um, in my experience, I've had to have clients who had virtual interviews in a car, and that was like, "Oh, wow, what are you doing?" Um, Also, if you are doing a virtual interview, I would say to most likely be at your dining room table so you
Mhm.
can sit up straight. Being in the bed, we can tell that you're laying down. So, you want to make sure you're sitting up tall, and you're able to focus and you're not leaning or slumped over. Because presentation is everything.
hmm I think another one to add to that is for virtual interviews, including phone interviews, because people get phone interviews these days. Don't lay in your bed when you're on the phone interviewing, because the orientation of your diaphragm affects how you sound. So they can tell. Yeah. Of course, want to make sure that your cameras and your mics and your internet, all the basics are working. That should be basic knowledge. But Antonio, you've got your hand.
One more thing. Also, if you get a virtual invite, I would say test out your computer system and make sure that everything is downloaded properly so you're able to get into the interview. A lot of times, people do use different platforms for virtual interviews. Sometimes they'll use Zoom or Teams, um, or some other Google. However, you might not have that downloaded, so go ahead of time. Don't wait till the day of the interview to download. Go ahead, download it, do what you need to do so that way when it's time for the interview, you are good to go. You're ready to roll. Um, because there's times where we've given interviews and we're like, oh my God, where's the person at? And then we get a message and they're having trouble logging in. Um, and usually it's because, they didn't
Yeah.
download it. Or
Yeah.
also check your internet.
Yeah.
Do an internet test. That's going to
Test
be
everything.
important too.
Yeah. No, that's a huge one. Making sure that you do have whatever it is that you need installed prior to the interview. Because I know I've had people in the past who are like, wait, I don't have Teams. And, they had to download it and delete everything. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure there are other virtual interview tips out there, but I feel like we hit some of the main ones. For in-person interviews, uh, maintain good posture and offer a firm handshake. So when you're in the interview, usually it's going to be some sort of table, maybe it's like a conference room. Uh, you know, you don't want to be sitting in your chair slouched over. You want to look like you want to be there. So you want to make sure your posture looks good. You don't want to overdo it either. You're not trying to intimidate anybody, but you want to show that you're here, present. And so having a good posture showcases that. And a firm handshake doesn't mean squeeze somebody's hand as hard as you can. Rather, just firmness, showing that, you have a firm handshake. Uh, I don't know if there are any tips on handshakes, but I know um, we've had people in the past who have complained about people's handshakes being too firm and not enough firmness. I think it's, yeah, pretty straightforward. Bringing extra copies of your resume. So this might be a little outdated with the digital world, but I think bringing extra copies of your resume for those who are interviewing you who may not have had a chance to look at your resume for whatever reason can be a great opportunity there. And, you know, if you have a portfolio that has information that, or, maybe some projects you've worked on in the past, if you have a portfolio and it is relevant to the job you're interviewing for, by all means, bring that. I know some jobs, some higher level jobs will require you to create a presentation and present to the interviewers. Um, so, going above and beyond, making sure you have extra copies of your resume and you're just prepared for whatever other things the interview might call for. And then, greet everyone warmly and confidently. So these are just a few tips for in-person interviews. Back to you all, what tips and tricks would you all have for in-person interviews based on your own experience? What does that look like for you all?
I actually have one for the handshake because I know some people can overthink that social interaction. But a tip that I got forever ago that's worked for me is shake the interviewer's hand like it's someone that you already know and like, but you haven't seen them for a while. And so you're happy to see them. So essentially, energy speaks for itself. So when you override your nerves and instead of being like, oh, I'm going to meet this person and they have no idea who I am and I really need this job. When you override your nerves like that and you're like, I'm just going to pretend like it's my aunt that I haven't seen in a couple years who I super, super love and adore, then your body will automatically relax a little bit. And when you go to shake their hand, they're going to feel that like enthusiasm without you like crushing their knuckles, essentially.
I like that. A little kind of mental shift to get the right energy. Any other tips for in-person interviews? I would say bring a bottled water if you don't have one. Sometimes they do provide, but if you've got water, that could be helpful. I know sometimes our mouths can get dry when we get nervous. Don't chew gum when you're interviewing. No gum chewing. Um, don't overdo cologne if you do perfume or makeup. Just keep it simple. Um, you always want to ask questions at the end of every interview, whether it's in person or virtual. I say at least three. One industry specific and two up to you.
I do like what Matthew Shields put in the chat. He said to scout the interview location and be aware of traffic. Showing up late is not a good first impression. That is so
Hmm.
true. It is good to know where the interview is taking place, so you know you can be better prepared to maneuver.
Amen.
Thank you, Matthew, for that.
All right, so move on to some more behavioral tips. We were kind of touching on some of those already. Take deep breaths before the interview to center yourself. You really want to center yourself. You don't want the nerves to creep up on you. You want to make sure you have as much control as you possibly can. And I know that deep breathing practices, at least for me, does help me to center myself. Now, whatever that is for you, whatever that looks like for you, that is up to you. But I would encourage you to be mindful of that and ready to dive into that exercise to center yourself so that you're going in with a little bit at easement. Pausing briefly before answering to collect your thoughts. So when you're interviewing, it can be quite easy to get nervous and feel as though you need to answer the questions immediately. Um, but I think it's important to pause, take your time, and think about the answer to the question before you answer it. Any tips on answering questions? Maybe some mental tip from previous experiences with in-person interviews?
Something that's worked really well for me, especially when it comes to handling nerves, is I transmute my nervous energy into enthusiasm instead. So instead of me
Mm,
being nervous about what could potentially go wrong or them asking questions I might not be prepared for, instead of being nervous about that, I'm now just excited about what could go right. And I no longer see it as like an interrogation and me kind of having to audition and interview for this role. It turns it into more of a conversational mindset where it's a give and a take in a conversation because I'm no longer just anxious and feeling this nervousness. I'm now just excited to find out about the opportunity. I'm excited to find more out
mm,
about the company, the position, the industry, all that kind of stuff.
mhm.
So learning how to do that was a really big game changer for me.
That's awesome, Elle. I really appreciate you sharing that insight. It's almost like you're uh, fabricating your own reality with how you look at certain things, your own perspective of things depicts how you react to it or what you see it as. So, pretty insightful stuff. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other tips? I mean, we've got a few more things to cover, so I'll just keep moving along. Using positive body language, so smiling, nodding, maintaining eye contact. If you struggle with any of these, just try to be mindful of that. You don't want to look kind of awkward and like you're forcing a smile or a nod. But I would say, try to do everything you can to make sure you are in a good mood prior to your interview, so you're not having to force anything. But yeah, I'm sure there's many ways that we can influence ourselves to be certain ways, but really for an interview, we want to be as positive as we possibly can. We want to make sure that the interviewers feel like we're engaged and that we want to be there. So that goes with smiling, nodding, eye contact. Yes, Antonio.
Also, just to
Oh, you just muted yourself again.
sorry about that.
Oh, you're
Also,
good.
to be mindful that you want to keep your questions based on the interview and not your personal life. Um,
Mm,
we've had some experience where I know I've interviewed people and the interview has it felt like it turned into more of a therapy session. So just remind yourself that you're here for a job, not for therapy. And that goes back to thinking positive and making sure you get that good night's sleep, Um, think of an interview as the the final game. Here it is. You're going into the game the next day. When you prepare for that game for the next day, which will be the interview, you make sure you get a good night's sleep. You get up early enough. You make sure you're prepped and everything's ready to roll. You've practiced what you're gonna say and what you're gonna do, and just keep that going when you get into the interview.
mhm. Amen. Yeah, the things we do. That really change how we show up. One question I like asking the interviewer is what attracted the them to work in the industry or the company? Yeah, Hardy, that is a good question to ask. Uh, I would say towards the end of an interview when you are given that opportunity to ask questions is, yeah, what drew you to want to work here? It's a good question to have. All right, practicing answering questions aloud to reduce nerves. This is something I do. I mean, for everything, even when I was in school, when I was presenting, for a presentation, but answering questions aloud to reduce nerves. So what we mean by this is, so we had those 10 interview questions and they were all answered thanks to AI. And what I would do is I would print those off and I would actually read them out loud. Um, and I would do this. This might sound a little crazy, but I would have a certain voice, a different voice that is not my normal voice for every question that I'm asking myself out loud. And then I would answer the questions in my normal voice to myself, essentially. But it kind of tricks yourself into thinking that, hey, you're actually talking to somebody here, and you're I don't know, for me at least, I feel as though saying anything out loud allows me to remember it better and just get more confident with it. So answering questions out loud definitely reduces nerves. I don't know if anyone has experience with that, but all right. So we've done all our prep. We've eased the nerves. We're confident. We already went into that interview and we aced it. Woo! Congrats to us, right? So, I am hoping that after that interview, you asked at least 3 questions, at least one industry specific and two, whatever comes to mind. Um, but you've done all that. You're home. You're relieved. The weight is off your shoulders. Now it is time to write that thank you email. So after every interview, within the next 48 hours, you should have sent a thank you email to everyone on that interview panel, if possible, to get their contact. So that could be one of your questions at the end is, hey, what is everyone's email? So why do we send one? Well, it shows appreciation for the opportunity. It reinforces your interest in the position, keeps you top of mind with the interviewer. So if you want to be top of mind with the interviewer, you want to make sure the email sent is warm and friendly, but reiterating your enthusiasm for the role and the organization. Highlight and shine light again on those skills that you possess that are transferable to the role that makes you a perfect fit for the role. Remind them why they should pick you. So yeah, highlight a specific topic or moment from the interview. I have had instances in the past where someone's interviewing me and we have some sort of commonality, even if it's um, unrelated to the job. Maybe it's a hobby. You can highlight a specific moment that was created in the interview just to kind of, remind them, hey, we had a moment with this person, and it might, you know, humans are emotional. We act on emotion. So if we feel emotion, yeah. Offer to provide any additional information. So at the end of the email, if there's any additional information that they may need, create that opportunity for them. But really, the email is just a simple way to say, thank you for giving me this opportunity to interview. I really enjoyed it. Again, these are the skills that I have. This is why I feel like I would be a great fit for this role. I really appreciated that moment that we shared when we talked about how much you love disc golf because that's my favorite thing to do. If there's any other information you need from me, I'm an email or a phone call away. Here's my info. Again, thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Something like that. Obviously, you wouldn't say that verbatim, but the goal is to you know, not let them lose track of you, and then closing professionally. All right, y'all. Are there any tips and tricks for that email that you will send after your interview?
Yeah, for me, I just always make sure that I use ChatGPT. So on that last screen where you had the what you should put in, yeah, the key elements, thank you. So yeah, if you guys take like a screenshot of this and you copy and paste these bullet points straight into ChatGPT and emphasize that you want a appreciative and warm professional tone, You can ask it to write you up a couple different emails and then go pick which one sounds the most like you, and then go in and add that personal touch, that personal anecdote that Elijah was talking about earlier. Then it's basically foolproof every time. And it's also a great way to make sure that your grammar is on point, that your punctuation and everything is good to go. But yeah, that really helps me with my thank you emails. And I know that when I was interviewing people in my last position, that receiving those kind of thank you emails went a super long way. And they do work.
Yeah, thanks, Elle, for bringing that up. And I will say with the AI utilization for these emails is to make sure that you're using them as a foundation rather than verbatim. You don't want to just copy and paste because there are AI detectors out there and people know what AI language looks and sounds like. So we want this to be human-like. So that's why,
For
thanks, Elle,
sure.
for saying make sure you add that anecdote or that human touch. So you want to make sure that you're it's genuine. But it is a great tool. Just use it wisely. Don't just copy and paste everything. And it's a tool, so use it wisely. Any other tips? All right. Key takeaways, using the STAR method to structure compelling answers. So everyone needs to get familiar with the STAR method. Remember, it is situation, task, action, result. And if you remember that this is what the STAR method entails, is these four principles, then when you're answering questions, just think STAR and then kind of go through it. Be like, okay, I got this. What was the situation? It was this. Okay, what was the task? I had to do this. So what was the action I took? So then the action I took to do the task was this. And then what were the results? Well, the results were this. So if you can remember what the STAR method is, then when you're answering your interviews and oh, I need to use the STAR method for this question because they want to visualize me doing something that they would need me to do. So how can I do that? How can I create that mental guidance for the interviewers? Well, using the STAR method will allow them to see you mentally doing what it is that you're explaining. ChatGPT is your ally for generating questions and crafting answers. Yes, it is your ally. Use it wisely. Don't just use it verbatim, though. Use it as a tool to help get the gears running in your head, not to replace them. Always personalize your responses to reflect your unique experiences. So ChatGPT doesn't know about those unique experiences that you might have. So make sure that you're always personalizing anything that comes out of AI. Always personalize your thank you email. Make sure that is human-like. Preparation equals confidence, y'all. That is it. Uh, if you're prepared, you're confident. And when you're not prepared and you're not confident, it shows. Trust me, I would know. Um, but yeah, that is pretty much it, everyone. This was just a different take on how to ace an interview. There are lots of different how to ace an interview workshops out there. This is just a spin on it, utilizing some of the tools that we know that are out there and accessible to most of us. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Are there any questions about anything whatsoever? The
Yes, I've got a question. You mentioned speed interviews. Now, they weren't a thing when I last did interviews. So can you just speak briefly on what to expect for those?
Yes, absolutely. So at the Community and Career Fair on October 7th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Hillsdale Conference Center, we will be having speed interviewing sessions. All right. So there's going to be industry specific interviewing sessions starting at 11 a.m. for skills trades, 12 p.m. for healthcare, 1 p.m. for retail, food, hospitality, and then healthcare again at 2 p.m. So there are four sessions, each an hour long. Each interviewer will be interviewed twice, each time for 10 minutes. Now, that is basically it. You can sign up though for as many as you want. in terms of the different sessions, I'm pretty sure. Um, but they're 10-minute sessions of speed interviewing. Do you have any questions about that?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions about that specifically?
Yeah, so I have a quick question about the speed interview sessions. What's most important to focus on during that time?
Yeah, that is a great question because you only have 10 minutes. So I would say get familiar with whatever industry specific speed interviewing session you want to attend. So was that Hardy who asked the question?
Yes.
So do you know, well, let's say I'm going to use you as an example. So let's say you're interested in healthcare. You may not be, but if you're interested in the healthcare speed interviewing session at 12 p.m., Hardy, what I would do is so we have a list of most of our employers already out. So some of those might be in the speed interviewing, some of them might not be. I would get familiar with the in organizations that you're interested, not only for the speed interviewing, but also for the um, fair itself. So for the speed interviewing, though, what I would recommend is to create an elevator pitch that is specific to the industry. So it's not tailored to a specific role, more so a general elevator pitch specific to an industry. So I would say that you could utilize ChatGPT to formulate this by taking all of your resume data and putting it into ChatGPT and asking it to create an elevator pitch for a 10-minute interview session. So what it would do is kind of create a foundation for you when you go into that speed interviewing. Probably the first question they're going to ask is tell me a little bit about yourself. That's your opportunity to kind of create the foundation for the interviewer. So I think that is the most important thing is to create that elevator pitch and to have it ready to be shared with the interviewers. And then every other question thereafter, kind of just you're able to utilize your elevator pitch to move the other pieces. So it makes it easier to answer those uh, other questions because you have that elevator pitch to lean back on that kind of touches in a lot of different areas. Maybe not verbatim, but kind of, it shines light on different key areas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if you need help with that, we can do that as well. We can create your elevator pitches ahead of time. Any other questions regarding anything?
I do have another question. How do
Yes.
you answer the question, tell me about one of your weaknesses?
Well, everyone has a weakness. So I'll tell you right off the bat is don't ever answer as I don't have any weaknesses because that is a red flag. Everyone has weaknesses. Just be honest with yourself. Try to find what that weakness is. And if you're aware of this weakness, I'm sure you've done things to try to address it. At least I hope so. Um, but there are ways to frame this. And I would just do a little bit of research because I think every weakness is different. And I don't want to call you out and have you tell me, but I would do a little research on what your weakness is and see how other people in the past have answered it. But everyone's got a weakness. Don't ever say I don't. I'm perfect. I don't make mistakes because that's not true. That's far from it. We're human beings. I hope that answers your question. I know I didn't give you an
No,
answer.
that was really constructive. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, uh, you all can reach out to us through our email, UVA pipelines at virginia.edu or my email. But thank you, everyone, for attending this workshop, the uh, how to ace an interview. I guess it's a spin on it, utilizing some of the tools that are out there. But I hope that everyone who has been in attendance for this workshop and will be watching this will be attending our UVA Career and Community Fair on October 7th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Hillsdale Conference Center, along with our speed interviewing sessions. More details will be in the description for all of that. But thank you again, everyone, for attending, and I look forward to seeing you all at the career fair. And thank
See
you.
you, everybody.